how to play chess and what are the rules that we have in chess, and some of the little things that you need to know before start playing chess. So that's all the stuff we're going to see here. And so why chess? Because I used to play as a professional player when I was young, and chess helps me to do things a bit better in my life. So I'm going to tell you some scenarios where chess can be really a useful one. I used to play a lot of cricket. I used to play some soccer, and I used to be a bit more athletic, doing a lot of martial arts and stuff. And they are actually pretty good for fitness, for a healthy body. That they are all something which is needed. But when it comes to mind, when it comes to thinking, the habit of thinking, which comes after you think and after you have a practice of thinking, so that is something we may not even think that it is needed. So a lot of people don't even have the habit of thinking, focusing on some particular thing and then concentrating on it and thinking in a much more disciplined way. So why and what it is? So first and foremost thing, think of this way. So whenever we have a problem and we get stressed out a lot, and we were filled with anxiety, and we were depressed, and we are upset, and we are angry, whatever the emotions it's going to be, and none of this is going to actually help us think and to get into a solution. And what people do is they sit and think, and at the same time while they're thinking they were angry, and while they were thinking they were having a lot of anxiety, and they get into make a lot of bad decisions. And also they will not be able to think about multiple solutions. Moment they think about something which they think that okay, this is the right thing to do, and even though that may not be, because their emotions are getting added upon on top, they just gonna blank, just go and do it, and which is not going to be really good. Whereas when you think as a chess player, it doesn't matter what your opponent is, doesn't matter you like him or doesn't like him, whatever the case going to be, you are given a problem. The guy has made a move and you have given a problem, and that problem you can solve it by just thinking in 5 minutes, or you can give yourself another 15, 20, 30 minutes and then think about every possible moves that you got, and if you move that, and what is the other moves going to be, and then based on his move what your move's going to be, so that you can plan next 5 or 10 moves that he is going to move, and for that what is my move is going to be, so that you can expect what is going to happen. So that more the predictable things that you're going to do when it comes to solving problems, it's much easier to solve it, because you're not going to be angry, you're not going to be anxiety, you not have anxiety, and you will be in an advantageous position. Okay, end of philosophy. Let's get into chess. Okay, so first thing is, you got the chessboard. So it should have eight squares on one side, and then 8 squares horizontally and vertically. And so when you actually planning and placing the board, so the right hand square, the corner square, should always be the light color, which is white. And the same goes to your opponent as well. So the right hand corner for him, the corner square should be white. And what's all these numbers and alphabets? So the numbers and alphabets are for notations. So when you go to a professional level chess, and you need to write scorecards, that's basically what are the moves you doing and your opponent is moving, and you need to pretty much write it down. So it's not compulsory, but a lot of players do it, so that once the game is done, you can go back and play the game and then see where you made a mistake. So that's basically with the numbers and stuff. So we will see that probably in another video, how to read a notation, how to play a notation and stuff. So for now, keep the board in the right place so that the right hand corner square is actually white, and then we can get into arranging the pieces. So when it comes to arranging pieces, there are a few different types of pieces that you have. First one is a pawn, and next one is your knight, and then your bishop, and then your rook, and then your queen, and finally your king. So this is all the pieces that you have, and this is pretty much, you have some of the pieces you have double and stuff like that. Pawns, you have 8 pawns, and knight, you have 2 knights, 2 bishops, 2 rooks, and queen. So now these pieces, they have specific names, and sometimes in your local language you might actually call them little different. Some people might say a rook as an elephant and bishop as a minister. So these kind of different names that you might actually come across, and especially knight, people say it as horse because it is a horse. So but the actual names are, this is a queen, this is a rook, and this is a bishop, and this is a knight, and this is a pawn, and this is your king. So this is all the actual names of pieces. Okay, so now let's get to arranging the pieces in the right way. So first thing is, you start with your pawns. So pawns are your first line of defense. So let them be little ahead in the board. And similarly, you go with your blacks as well. And just remember, so there is only one move per person. So that means once you made your move, you just have to wait for your opponent to finish his moves, and then you can move yours. So it's not like checker, you can just jump over another piece and things like that. Only piece that is capable of jumping over another piece is a knight. So rest of the pieces cannot jump over. At the same time, the pieces, they have a specific way of moving on the board, and that's how they should move at all times. And then there are rules on how you actually engage in combat for each of those pieces. So let's say if it's a pawn, how it's going to engage in combat and stuff like that. So we will talk that in a minute. So now the pawns are all in place, and make sure that the pawns are center of the square so that we are not actually getting confused which square this is going to be. So they're all in right places. So first goes the rook. So both corners we will have rook, and similarly the black rooks go here, and then followed by the knight next to the rook, and similarly the black knight goes up here. Then goes the bishop, and then the white bishops, and then the king and queen. King and the queen, sometimes people get confused where to put these ones. To make it easier, if it's a white queen, you're going to put it onto your board, it should be on the white square. So if this square from your left hand side is the first thing that goes in there after your bishop is your queen. If this square is not white, and if you're having a white queen, then check if you got the right square on the corner. So that might be wrong. And then goes your king. Similarly, the black queen goes into a black square, and the black king goes into a white square. So now that is all done. So now let's look into how each of these pieces move. And you might actually think that the pawns are the easiest guys. They're the soldiers, right? They have only 1 point. Each of these coins, they have point system. So the pawns are actually the ones which has got more complex moves, and it's quite a bit of complex. So we will deal with that later. So first, let us look into the rook. That's easy. So the rooks goes in sort of like a cross, which is like they go in straight lines here, or they come straight down, straight left, or straight right. So that's how a rook goes. So either this way, or this way, this way, or this way. They don't go diagonally, they don't go any other direction, just like a straight lines. That's how they go. And next is your knight. Knight is a bit difficult to understand, but as you get through it is a lot easier. Knight goes in like sort of like an L shape. So it goes 2 steps up, and then 1 towards whichever the direction you want to go. So that means 1, 2, and then 3. Now 1, 2, and then 3. Now 1, 2, and then 3. 1, 2, and then 3. So that way the knight can actually go around it in a sort of like an L shape. So that's how knight goes. So knight has got one special power, which means it can actually jump over other pieces. Let's say if there is another piece in between, the knight can still go through 1, 2, 3. They will not be able to take that piece, they will not be able to kill that piece, but they can jump over the piece. And how do other pieces go? So next one is your bishop. So bishop goes in diagonal. So that means the moment you arrange all your pieces, let's say the bishop is actually on a white square, the white bishop is actually on white square. Until the game is over, this bishop will be on the white squares. It cannot go into a black square. So that means if this bishop is up here, it can go diagonally on this white lines, or from here it can go. Similar to your rook, but it's on a diagonal way. So that's how bishop goes. And so next one is your queen. So queen is combination of your rook and your bishop. So the queen goes like a plus sign, which is straight lines, and then your bishops diagonally. So if it's on a black square, it goes on black squares diagonally, and then the plus. So that's how the queen goes. So queen is actually a combination of rook and a bishop. And then your king. So king is similar to a queen. It can go around pretty much all squares, but just only 1 step. It will not take multiple steps, except for one which is called castling, which I'll talk shortly. So first thing is, can go 1 step forward, 1 step diagonally, 1 step sideways, 1 step diagonally, backwards, diagonally, and then to the left. So that's how the king can go. It can only move in one direction. I mean, like 1 step at a time. So that's all the movements for the main pieces. Let's come to the pawn. The pawn is little different. So when it actually moves, it moves in a straight line. So whenever they are in the first rank, so I mean like the when they are in the original position. The first move, when you move the pawn, you got two choices. You can move as a single step, or you move as a two steps. So that is like you can directly go here, or you can go like that. So only once you can move your pawn like this, like two steps at a time. That's only when you move it first time. After that, you will not be able to move it twice. So that's the only perk for moving first time. You can move two steps ahead. Next thing is, when you actually facing with another pawn, if there is two pawns or piece, another piece is actually you facing with another one. If the pawn cannot move straight lines, it is stuck. It cannot move anywhere. It cannot engage in combat like other pieces. Let's say if it is a queen, it can actually go and kill that pawn. So that is how queen work, and every other piece, it goes to that square and kills a piece on that square. Whereas with pawns, moment it reaches, and if there is another piece, it's stuck. It cannot move further, and it cannot even kill that piece. So the way pawns kill pieces is basically in a diagonal. So that means when the pawn is here, if it is facing another piece here, it can actually kill that piece. So that's how pawns actually kill another piece. Now pawns has got one special power which none of the pieces in the board has, which is called pawn promotion. So which is like, let's say a pawn reaches like that, and then moment it reaches the last square in your enemy side, it has the option to convert that pawn can actually magically convert into sort of like a queen. So you can actually make a queen out of it, or you can make a rook out of it, or you can make a bishop out of it, knight out of it. You can make that pawn into any piece that you wanted. And most people prefer a queen because queen is the most powerful one. So let's say if 8 of your pawns goes and reaches your opponent line, you can have 9 queens. So sometimes you may have to borrow another coin from a next board next to you. So that's pawn promotion. And pawn has got one special movement. It's called en passant. I don't know if I say that right because I always mistake how I say that. Let's say it is en passant or en passant or something. So what does it mean is, let's say you're moving your pawn and someone is moving something like that, and then you're moving, and now the opponent, the black side, they actually moving the pawn 2 steps ahead to meeting you side to side. So whenever this is happening, that means you're moving up here and the opponent is actually moving two squares at a time. Now the very next move, you got one option where you can actually go sideways and then you can take this pawn. So that is basically the pawn supposed to move just 1 step. Now it has used its privilege to jump 2 steps. Now as per the en passant rule, you still have the option to take that pawn by en passant. But remember, if you have moved some other pieces, now you will lose the en passant the next time when you get the chance. So you have to do the en passant right after the opponent pawn is 2 steps and it's right next to your pawn. So that's how the en passant work. So now, how does the game end? So the game ends in 3 different ways. One is win, lose, or draw, or tie. So that's how the game ends. So winning is basically either you resign, so the opponent person wins, or you are being checkmated, in the sense your king has been attacked and the king has got no moves. So that is when you pretty much you lose. And so that's how you win and lose. And the draw is a bit more complex. There are different ways that you can draw. So one is like both of you guys, when you're playing with a player and you both agree to say, okay, I don't have any of the moves, I'm bored of it, let's sign for a draw. That means if both of you agree, then the game is a draw. So that's an option. And the second is like, if both of the people don't have any pieces or any opportunity to win, then it becomes a draw. So let's understand that. And chess is actually so much fun when you actually get into tournaments and stuff. So it's a lot of fun. Okay, so now you see like both of you have just a king, and a king cannot cancel out another king. That means you cannot even check another king. So you cannot do a checkmate with a king. So just with both of you, if you have a king, then it is insufficient pieces and it's a draw. And let's say the opponent guy has got a bishop and you don't have anything. Still it's a draw, because this guy has got a bishop, but with a king and a bishop, you cannot checkmate it. You cannot corner this king to a location and you cannot actually checkmate it. So that is one reason, it is a draw. let's say you also have a bishop or you have a knight. Now with you as a king and a knight, you cannot win. Even if the opponent guy doesn't have a bishop, you cannot checkmate the opponent king, and the opponent guy also cannot do a checkmate. So again, insufficient pieces, and that's again a draw. So that's one way. And another way is like a 50 move rule. So the 50 move rule is basically two things that you shouldn't do it. One is you're moving your pawn in between. The moment you or your opponent moves a pawn, then the 50 moves cancelled and you need to count it again. And or if you cancel or kill another piece, let's say your opponent is actually killing a pawn or anything like that, then the 50 move rule is cancelled. So that means it will start again. The 50 move rule will start again. So that means there is no pawn movement and there is no other killing of any other pieces in the board. Then if you keep moving on the board, then it's actually like you have to start counting 50 moves, and moment it reaches 50 moves, then the game is a tie. That means it's a draw. And the next one is a stalemate. So the stalemate is a difficult position. I think that's one thing like a lot of people will hate it. So that's like, let's say you got into a position where you are like that, something. So now if you see the king is in a corner, the black king is in a corner. So the queen is actually controlling these two squares and this square and this square as well. So that means the king's all three squares in front of the king is all controlled. The king can only move one square at a time. So now that king will not be able to move anywhere. So now the king is not even in a check. So the king is not having a check. At the same time, the king doesn't have any moves to move. Let's say if there is no bishop or any other piece on the board. So that means that black doesn't have any legal moves. At the same time, the king is not in check. So in that case, it's called a stalemate. So the pretty much it's a draw. And next one is a repetitive move option. So that's basically, let's say you got some pieces, the opponent has got some pieces, something like that. Now what happens is you see the position of the board, how the pieces are arranged. Now let's say I move something like that here, and this guy moves something here. Now I move back here. Now this guy moves back here. So this is once, again here, twice, again here, thrice. So the moment you do these repetitive moves again 3 times, then it is a draw as well. So that's how different ways the game can actually end, as a win, lose, or a draw. So next one is castling. So the castling is one place where you can actually secure a king. What happens is most of the time when you play any opening and any game that you want to play and you want to win it, so you want to make sure that your king is safe, because the moment king is checkmated, the game is gone. So if your king is unsecure, the game is done. So you have to make sure that the king is pretty secure and safe. So for that, typically what people do is they do something called castling. So that is the only time 2 pieces in the board will move in a single move, and at the same time the king moves 2 squares. So that's the only time this thing happens. So there is a king side castling and a queen side. So what is a king side and queen side? So the side where the queens are here. So this 4 squares, this is the queen side, and this 4 square is actually the king side. So now at this stage, there is only 3 rules that goes in here. So the king and the rook, whichever the piece that you're going to do castling, it shouldn't move. You shouldn't have done a single move with these pieces. Then you can actually move your king 2 pieces here, and then the rook 2 pieces here. So that is castling. That is like the king goes here and the rook goes here. So that's your castling. And the next one is, let's say if there is another opponent piece which is looking into the line where you're doing the castling. Let's say the rook is actually looking into this line. So now if you take your king right through this way, there is going to be a check. So you cannot do a castling through check. So that means if there is an opponent who is controlling the line where you're actually going to do the castling, then you cannot do the castling. So that is one thing. And then you cannot do a castling when there is a check. So if the king is in check, then you have to either defend it, or if you're moving the king, then you cannot do the castling. So let's say if you're defending it, and then if there is no intervention between it, then you can do the castling. But when the king is in the check, you cannot do the castling at this stage. That is illegal. So when the king is in check, you cannot do castling. And if the opponent is controlling the line where the castling is happening, then again you cannot do the check, I mean to the castling. So that's like you can do castling on the king side. On the queen side, you can do castling. The kings will go 2 steps. This time the rook will go 3 steps. So that is the queen side castling. So that's castling for you guys, and I think pretty much we covered a lot of these rules and stuff. And so now coming to the game of chess, there are different types of games that you can play. The regular games that you play just with your friends, like no time limit and stuff. And most of the tournaments will have, let's say, half an hour, 1 hour, 1 hour, 30 minutes and stuff like that. Depends on how long each round's gonna be. And so each player will be given, let's say, 1 hour. So that means you can do your 100 moves, 200 moves within 5 minutes, or take your 1 hour to do it. It's just you're given the time, and you make all your moves within the time. So whomever time reaches first, there is a flag that falls after anyone reaches 1 hour in your clock. So moment your 1 hour is reached, and the opponent has still got 5 minutes and stuff, you will still lose the game. So that is one way of losing game with time. And the next one is the game called Blitz, where each of them is given 15-20 minutes and stuff. So you use that to play the game. It's a bit more faster. And the other one is Lightning, which is 5 minutes each. So that means you have to finish the whole game within 5 minutes. So now, if you want to be a professional chess player, you need to learn something called openings. So the chess consists of 3 things. One is an opening, and a middle game, and then an end game. So the opening is like the very first 20 to 30 moves are called openings, and after that your middle game. So that's when you transition between your openings to the middle game. So the middle game is pretty much where you play your actual game. So there is no set of moves that you can learn and you do it. So middle game is your actual gameplay, and whatever you do in your middle game is what you end up in your end games. End game is like you use, like you're about to finish the game. You've got only few pieces in the board, and both of you is trying to finish the game. So that's your end game. So if you're going to study chess, like say chess has got a lot of things to study, a lot of books to study, a lot of openings. So people focus on openings. And openings as in like when you play from a white side, if you're having the white side, because in tournaments, if you play white once and the next time you will play black and then you play white again. So it's like you cannot keep playing white or you cannot keep playing black. So you have to switch between white and black. So if you play white, you will play openings which is favorable to white side. If you play black, you will play the openings favorable to the black side. But with respect to openings, there is like, let's say from white side, a lot of people play, the Netflix series called Queen's Gambit. So that's one of the favorite opening for a lot of people who play white, because it actually gives a very advantageous position for people playing white. And apart from that, there is like a Black Demore and Rylopus. Rylopus is actually one of my favorite when I actually play white, not just mine. And any of the beginner players, they actually play with Rylopus. Let's say if you're playing against a beginner player, then Rylopus will be sort of like your choice, because they love enjoying playing it, and you enjoy playing it, and at the same time you get into a really good advantageous position. And similarly, from black side, when you play as a black, people play Silicon, Pelican, and then French Open, and then Giacopena, and a lot of different, I might actually say the names a little incorrectly, sorry for that, because it's been a while since I actually even wrote those names and played those games, so forgive me if I actually make mistakes on name with their names being said incorrectly. So that's the things, guys. You learn these openings, and so pretty much you save time, because you know, like first to 20 to 30 moves, whatever the guy is going to move, you're going to keep moving based on his moves. So either it's a main line opening or a variation. So you're just going to keep moving, and you don't have to remember, you don't have to think too much about moving those ones. So if you just follow the opening, at the end of the opening, you will be in the position where you see in the book. The position will be sort of similar if that guy also does the similar moves and stuff. So I think that's about it, guys. We'll talk about FIDE, which is where people get the ratings and rankings to get into becoming an international master, grandmasters, and things like that, and FIDE rated tournaments and stuff like that. So we'll talk about probably in another video. And that's it for this, guys. And I've been doing this English videos after a long time. I'll probably do the other videos which I've done in Tamil. I'll do the dubbing for the English, and then I'll upload those videos as well. Yeah, we'll catch up again. Thank you so much. Cheers.